Welcome to the Irish NFL show, where we continue with our division off-season previews. We're turning our attention on this episode to the AFC West. Joining myself, Conor Brophy, are Brian, Kieran and Noel, and we're looking forward to getting stuck into this division, which of course produced the Super Bowl champions of last year, the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is indeed where we started. Brian, you and I, alongside Colin, were lucky enough to witness that one in the flesh. And what was striking about the aftermath of the game, and we talked about it even as we did our quick upsum as the confetti was still falling in Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, was how focused the Chiefs, and particularly Patrick Mahomes, already were on history making. They won three in a row, and the journey starts in a couple of months' time. He wasn't long rallying the players, even as they were celebrating on the field, to say, next year we need to make it three. No one's ever done three.
Yeah, it's almost like they have a different dynamic every season in terms of what the kind of mindset is within this team. And for large parts of last season, it felt like this wasn't the team of old. This wasn't the team that even won the Super Bowl the previous year. And yet, because of the nature of the division, they're in the playoffs. And come the playoff time, things just all kind of fell into place. The wide receivers were all of a sudden catching the balls that they were dropping during the season. And there was very much this narrative that we've been written off by so many teams. No one expected them to win to Buffalo and win. People felt they wouldn't go in and beat Baltimore. And even in the Super Bowl, like predominantly most people were like, we went into a game where they weren't even the favourites again for the Super Bowl. They were underdogs by a couple of points on the spread with QuinnBet. And they come out of the Super Bowl, they win it, and you would think that the enormity of being the first team in almost 20 years to win to win Super Bowls back to back would be more than enough. But obviously, we were very gracious in being there, and we were it was very evident in the press conference and even the piece on in the stadium in terms of what they were saying. This is only the beginning for us. We want to do three in a row. We want to cement our place in the history books. And Andy Reid, even if you watch some of the off-season coverage, he's already looking ahead. He strikes me as your Sir Alex Ferguson, your Arsene Wenger's back in the day, managers who enjoyed the moment very briefly, already looking ahead to what's ahead. He said something in his press conference which was very interesting. We're already behind the eight ball here. We're 3 weeks behind every other team who are preparing for the next season. And yeah, here we are talking about division now, where you find it very difficult to see any team, coming up and beating. Maybe we'll see something with the Chargers this year with a new head coach, but right now you'd have to feel this team is very much ready for another run back in terms of winning the West and put themselves in a position to be in the Super Bowl in New Orleans come February next year.
You mentioned them as underdogs heading into the Super Bowl last year, and they were underdogs on the road against their opponents, as well as you mentioned in the playoffs against both the Bills and against the Ravens. But they're now favourites to win the Super Bowl, which is kind of crazy to think. No team's ever won three Super Bowls in a row, and yet the Chiefs are favourites. They're I think 11-2. Actually enhanced to 7-1 with QuinnBet, our partner here in the Irish NFL show. But that's the esteem in which this team is held, and the winning culture that they built is held. I mean, and it was striking, as you say, last year also, that they managed to concoct this underdog narrative, kind of similar to what the Patriots used to do with their peak, where they'd always find some reason to have a chip on their shoulder, even though they're very much favourites in most people's minds.
Yeah, I think it's the first year in about 3 or 4 years they've gone into the season, albeit we're recording this in the summer, so we're a couple of months off potentially to start the season. Maybe odds will slightly flip-flop, but right now, clear favourites. Last year, I think it was Baltimore, the previous year, Buffalo going in. They were always kind of lagging behind in terms of where they were in the betting order, but I think the bookmakers have been burned to quite a few times now. I know, having had our conversation with QuinnBet, there was quite a substantial amount of people, investing in the Chiefs come the playoffs. I think they're cautious now around, going against the Chiefs. 11-2 from a betting perspective, enhanced to 7-1. I think it's a nice bet. Like, essentially, you're recognizing the team that you truly believe will be back in the playoffs, and then the aspiration is to go and win maybe 2-3 games and they win the Super Bowl again. I know it's not that straightforward, but it's striking that the price is still there for me. I like that price.
The nature, Noel, of continued success in the NFL is by dint of the salary cap and by dint of the fact that the playing field gets tilted in favour of the have-nots to keep the haves down, for the billionaire socialist principle, which is the NFL model. It becomes more and more difficult, and you need to find role players, and you need to find guys in the draft who are going to step up. And which is the Chiefs, to be fair, have managed consistently to do. 1 minute McCole Hardman's written off, the next minute he's catching the winning pass in the Super Bowl, and they always seem to have a guy who does it just when he needs to. But they've added a couple of intriguing bits here between free agency and the draft. But they also, I suppose, have to compensate for the fact that they're probably not going to get too much more out of Travis Kelce.
Yeah, no, that's it. Well, look, you talk about, with the salary cap era, how you have to be inventive, you have to find the right players, you have to bring the right players into the right price. And you also have to have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. We watched it for years in New England with Tom Brady. Okay, you could say Randy Moss and Julian Edelman, but other than that, then it was kind of a conveyor belt of the next guy up at wide receiver. And you just have that quarterback who can actually bring the best out of them. But I think we look at it this year, and for me, I think this offense has probably just got a little bit stronger. Now, we know there's issues with Rashee Rice, who had a good season last year, and we'll kind of see what kind of comes from that. But I think Xavier Worthy is a good draft pick who can come in and can help stretch the field and make an impact. And then we have Hollywood Brown as well, who's come in, who is a player. I don't think he's completely lived up to the hype that was there for him, but he is still a very good player. And when he goes into a team like this could be, when you have Patrick Mahomes there, this really could be the quarterback that could unlock him. And for me, this Chiefs team has just got stronger. When you have probably the best head coach in the league and best quarterback in the league, that's a nice place to start from. You mentioned Kelsey, which is interesting enough, because I have kind of been thinking, he's gone Hollywood now. He has his podcast. He's touring around with the girlfriend. He's on stage. And you just kind of wonder, this is his
Did you just refer to Taylor Swift as the girlfriend? Like, what planet are you living on?
Okay, he's the boyfriend. He's the boyfriend touring, going on stage. And I think this is his 11th season he's going into now. And you just wonder, is he going to slow down a bit? Will the eye be off the ball a little bit? I'm just throwing out a hypothetical there, because there's very few things you can look at this team and kind of pick holes in. They are so strong. I think they're head and shoulders in this division. I don't think it'll be difficult for them to take this division. And then, as Brian said, once you hit those playoffs, there's nobody better over the last number of years for winning. So yeah, I think this is a stronger team, and they're just going to go from strength to strength, I think.
Kieran, I don't know if you shared that view. Like, I have these doubts, because we've seen this before. If you stick around long enough, we've seen great Patriots teams not manage to win the third one in a row. We saw the Dallas Cowboys, great team, not manage to win the third one in a row. We've seen the 49ers. We've seen a lot of teams stack the first and the second victory. The third one's never been done before, and it's not gotten any easier in the modern NFL. I suppose the only factor that gives anyone pause for thought really is the Mahomes element.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mahomes is the X factor. He's the generational. He's the Beckham. He's the Messi of the NFL right now. I mean, we're looking at 6 consecutive AFC championships. I don't think the Chiefs were, as highly touted last year. And it was, for all intents and purposes, it was a down year for the Chiefs last year. Down year for Mahomes. He had just over 4,000 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 14 picks. He had his lowest passer rating in his professional career. The Chiefs only managed more than 30 points 3 times all season. They were scraping through the season. Yes, they managed to finish at 11-6, but nobody could say during the season that this is a team that's going to scorch everybody and it's going to win the Super Bowl. So there were signs of decline, which may be a strong word, last year with the Chiefs. But between all that, between the numbers going down from Mahomes, not as many points, because they've been an offensive juggernaut for the last 5-6 years. Kelsey bailed him out as usual in the playoffs. And it's hard to see if a third one is possible. I'm not convinced. Yes, they've got a great defensive line, and picking up Chris Jones again and Drew Tranquill and George Karlaftis and people like that are just rock solid defensive players. But yes, they picked up Hollywood Brown. But looking at that receiving core, is there anyone out there that you can kind of nail on as a wide receiver one? Is Xavier Worthy going to be someone who maybe, yes, he's got the wheels, but has he got the ball catching ability to turn into a wide receiver one? Sky Moore, again, like Noel mentioned, that the Rashee Rice thing is all the way up in the air. I know he's practicing with the team, but I mean that could change at a day's notice. And McCole Hardman was basically picked off the scrap heap and turned into the hero at the end. But I'm just not sold. Mahomes is going to be 29 in September, so he's still technically he could have another 10 plus years in his prime. Was last year just a downturn in his offensive abilities? If that's the case and they still win a Super Bowl, they'll take that every year. But are we looking at another year of Kelsey? Where's his focus? Like what's been discussed. I read a story earlier on about
Kieran. To your point, and I'm kind of with you here, because I think it's an amazing achievement if they can pull it off. But you need so much to go right for you as well. Yeah. I mean, you look at them in the playoffs last year, and we can kind of skirt over this very quickly. But Buffalo didn't show up. The Ravens got away from the run and, you know, probably on another day might have had the Chiefs. 49ers have blocked extra point and a muffed punt, which basically turned the tide of the game. Like those weren't brilliant things that the Chiefs necessarily did. They were mistakes that the 49ers made that kept them in the game. You need every team to go for you to win a Super Bowl. And having that 3 years in a row is an awful lot to ask.
Right. And even the small, like things that you would forget about over the course of the season, Miami having to go there in the divisional, in the first round. I mean, that just fell in their lap. You know, I read a thing earlier on today about the famous Jim Brown when he was at the peak of his powers. He started getting into the acting world. Kind of maybe some similarities with Mr. Kelsey. Is he losing focus on the football aspect, and is he going to veer off towards the other aspect? So where's his focus? They've got a pretty decent start to the season. I mean, they do have Ravens, Bengals, Falcons to start with, so you know they should be able to get off to a decent start. I just don't see. I don't think three, basically, over the history of the NFL over the last number of decades, we've talked about three being almost impossible, and it's never been done. I just don't see enough offensive weapons there. I don't see a wide receiving core that's going to be enough. You got Isaiah Pacheco, who's basically run himself into a punching bag over the last number of years. How much has he got left? And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't think anyone could call him a top-end running back. So, you know, are they just going to continue to rely on Kelsey bailing them out on a 4th and 8 with 33 seconds left in the fourth quarter? I don't know if you can keep going back to the well. So obviously they're going to, you know, they're going to make the playoffs, but are they just going to be going back to the well too many times?
Yeah, I feel bad for them now. All they've got is probably the greatest quarterback any of us have ever seen play the game, one of the greatest offensive minds any of us have ever seen in the game, and the best defensive coordinator in the game right now. Apart from that, they got nothing. I don't know how they're going to manage to run it back next year.
Well, they still have Kadarius Toney for some reason.
I think the nature of the division allows for them to run it back. I mean, we touched on it briefly there, but now we're going to speak about the other teams. But you'd argue there's nobody at that upper echelon that can challenge them. And you're in a situation, then you win a division, and because you've got an opportunity to kind of double down on beating these teams, you're certainly going to be in the sweepstakes for the 4th seed, 2nd seed, and that allows you great opportunities. And then you do really only need certain players to turn up offensively come playoff time. I like what they have on offense. I'm the other way. I think I'm with Noel. I think they've improved. I really like the Hollywood Brown sign. He hasn't played a proper season since 2021. His numbers last year were his worst of his career, but then you'd argue he's in Arizona. It's a tough year there. And I think they haven't had an over-the-top type of deep threat player since Tyreek Hill's been traded. I think it's a lovely signing for a 1 year, $11 million. I think he could potentially get his career back on track.
All right, we shall see. That is the Kansas City Chiefs.